include diagnosis and treatment of mental health and learning disorders, 30-minute phone consultations with families, bereavement and grief support, and remote neuropsychological evaluations. That's just a sampling of some of the services that we're offering now, so please visit childmind.org/telehealth to learn more. Today, I'd like to talk to you about summer activities that you can do with your kids with learning disorders, and also just more broadly how you can help keep your kids engaged now that we're learning about some potential camp closings and other just general activities that may or may not be open through the summer. So I'll be answering your questions about that along with anything else that you're wondering about. Please post your questions in the feed, and we'll also post some links to some helpful resources on childmind.org. Remember, we're here every day and we look through your questions daily. So if we don't get to a question today, it can be included potentially in a future Facebook Live. Again, today I'm going to be talking with you all about how to support your kids with learning disorders over the summer. Kids with learning disorders, with ADHD, with language difficulties, children whose first language is not English, and kids who are just very early in their schooling, we're thinking about preschool through early elementary school, are particularly vulnerable to what we call the summer slide. So that refers to the backward slide that a lot of kids make in their reading and especially math skills over the summer months without the explicit and recursive learning that they get in the classroom setting. Now with COVID and a much more extended break from formal schooling that they've had over the past couple of months and the benefits of face-to-face explicit teacher-led instruction, I'm more concerned about these kids and their potential loss of skill. And not just kids with learning disorders, kids in general. There was actually a study recently done by the Northwest Evaluation Association that suggested that students who do not receive sustained instruction during the coronavirus school shutdown will retain only 70% of their annual reading gains compared to a typical school year. And the decline in performance we know is even more dramatic in math. So summer is certainly a time when parents look to loosen up a little bit, when kids look to have things loosened up a little bit. But for these kids and for all kids, it's important this year, I think more than in other years, that kids really do keep up with some skills practice. It's going to look different for your child depending on the age of your child, the skill level of your child. Younger children, I would really encourage parents to try to keep their kids engaged in about 15 to 20 minutes of reading and math practice most days of the week. Older elementary and middle school students, that might look like 20 to 30 minutes, I'm sorry, to those students of reading, math, and writing practice. But academic work doesn't have to look like traditional classroom work. There are ways of incorporating academic and learning into other activities, and there are a lot of ways I can talk about some of those examples later on in the feed. But for children with diagnosed learning disabilities, it's also possible that more formal instruction that closely aligns with the instructional methods that your teachers are using would be indicated and potentially in greater doses. So I would certainly encourage parents to try to touch base with their students' teachers, with their students' learning specialists, and in order to learn about how they can continue to reinforce their kids' skills throughout the summer. Are there specific workbooks that teachers might be recommending? Are there specific reading lists that teachers might be recommending? Are there any online educational activities that the teachers are aware of and recommend because they align in particular with the way that the school or the curriculum is rolled out? I will share a number of resources. There are resources on our website, and I'll also share some more specific resources with educational activities that parents can try to engage their kids in later on. But I do think that talking to teachers is a really good place to start. I'll also link our home learning resources guide, which has a number of reading, math, writing, science, social studies, etc. activities that are mostly free and really easily accessible online. I'm going to give just some broad tips, 4 broad tips about how families can survive COVID-19 this summer. They're going to look very similar to any tips that you would have heard from me or from any of my colleagues if you've tuned into any of these Facebook Lives throughout this crisis. Because we know what helps kids to thrive. And the first one is really maintain a routine. Even in the summertime in non-COVID years, kids are used to having a routine. They go to daycare, they go to day camp, they're in summer school, they're in some sort of programming that gives them the structure and predictability that they need in order to feel safe, stable, secure, and in control to an extent. So summer routines can certainly be different than school routines do, but it's still important to have some semblance of routine for your kids to help them have a sense of how each day and how each week is going to unfold. We know that when kids don't have a routine that they can follow, they're much more likely to feel anxious, and they're even more likely to misbehave, which can make your days a little bit more challenging. For the summer, depending on the age of your child, of course, I would encourage parents to involve their children in the process of setting up a routine and creating a schedule for the day. So it'll help them feel empowered. They'll be more likely to stick to a schedule that they've helped to create because they have a little more buy-in, and you also know that they've chosen, hopefully, things that they're more likely to want to engage in. So find some fun activities that they can do throughout the day and let them to choose which ones they want to do and in what order. The schedule for the day doesn't have to be jam-packed with activities, but I do think it's important to make sure that bedtimes and meal times remain as consistent as possible, and that parents are also incorporating routines into those activities themselves. It could also be a really good time to start new traditions. So for example, maybe now throughout the summer, a Sunday morning becomes pancake breakfast, and then the family takes a long walk or a bike ride together, or Friday nights can be Friday barbecue. In addition to just giving kids structure and predictability, routines also give kids something to look forward to, and incorporating something new and enjoyable over the summer can break up a little bit of the monotony that another 3 months away from school and friends and organized activities that kids typically look forward to. That monotony can be broken up by just incorporating some new exciting things. So the first thing, maintain some routine and consistency. The second, incorporate a lot of physical activity and time outdoors. I'm staring at a window right now. It is beautiful outside. We know that kids and adults have been cooped up both because of the winter and because of COVID. Now that things are starting to open up a little bit, the weather is warming up as well. There are many more opportunities, while still abiding by social distancing rules and guidelines, to get outside, to enjoy the fresh air, to get some vitamin D. We know it's really important for both physical health and for mental health to spend time outdoors and and soaking in vitamin D. So please make sure your kids are getting a lot of outdoor play, even if it's in your backyard. You can create scavenger hunts, obstacle courses, encourage your kids to garden. They can just run around in circles, ride bicycles with a helmet, ride scooters with a helmet. I'm a neuropsychologist. I always have to throw in the plug for a helmet. These things are obviously going to be limited or contingent upon where you live, your community, your housing situation, if you live in an apartment versus a house, if you have access to a backyard versus a communal park, and the level of supervision that you can provide your children while trying to work from home. So now is also a time for parents to continue, I should say, being creative, because they've had to be creative, I think, for many, many months at this point with all the pivoting that we're constantly doing. Splash around. We know that summer is synonymous with spending time in water or near water, at the beach, at the pool, at the lake. This year, you can continue to do it in a socially distant way. Look into what beaches are open, what lakes are open, and as long as you abide by the rules, I think a lot of parks are posting what the rules are. It could be you have to wear a mask if you're walking around, you have to stay 6 feet away from other people. Some beaches are not allowing people to bring food. Whatever, there's no reason that you can't spend a family day on the beach, even if you're doing it in a new way now. In your backyard or in a park, set up a pool or a water park. There's some relatively inexpensive ways to do that now. There are inflatable pools that are selling out of every store and online retailer. There you can do slip and slide and have a splash pad, or build a water table yourself. Take a giant bowl, fill it with water, and dump a bunch of toys in it, and you have a water table for your child. Turn on the sprinkler, turn on the hose. Find some fun ways to help your kids splash around in water outside. Get in touch with nature. This is a really good time to buy a bird feeder or build a bird feeder with your child. Have your kids fill it with bird feed every day and see who comes. Observe the birds that you're attracting with your bird feeders. Create an animal survey for your kids. This is a really interesting way to learn about nature while spending time outside now that the weather is clearing up. Gardening. There are a lot of these activities that may not be a part of your kids' typical routine that would be really great to incorporate now that they're spending much more time at home. My third broad tip, I'm going to cringe a little when I say it, is to limit screen time. I say this one because I know, I cringe when I say this because I know for most parents perhaps, screens have become a sanity device for them. For working parents, screens may be the only way that they can get their work done, or have 5 minutes to read the mail, or even take a shower. But kids, because of that, kids have been exposed to a lot more screen time than normal during quarantine. So now that the weather's getting nicer, again, as things are starting to open up a little bit, this is the time to bring back in non-screen activities. Plan some fun outdoor activities. We already talked about those that they can do, such as bike riding, scooter, playing soccer in the backyard. Include some creative activities like family game nights, painting, working on a complex puzzle, building with Legos. You can challenge your child every day to build a new structure out of Legos and take a picture of your child's structure every day. And at the end of the summer, you can give them a photo book of all of the really cool Lego structures that they built over the course of this really interesting time in their lives. And that's something they can have forever. It's also a great time to teach them some useful skills that'll also perhaps make your lives easier. So teach them how to do laundry, help you fold laundry, involve them in cooking, send them outside to wash your car. There's some really great ways that you can keep your kids busy doing things, learning skills away from screens. And that's not a judgment, but I do think that now that the sun is out, if we can try to limit screen time, it would be fantastic, which doesn't mean no screens ever. Just, I think, let's try to incorporate some other non-screen activities. The fourth broad tip, stay connected. So take the time to continue to stay connected with other people. Schedule virtual play dates, drive-by visits of friends and neighbors. If you live near a beach, have a socially distanced beach date or a yard party with your neighbors while staying in your own respective yards, etc. But really try to use this time to maintain relationships. So again, these things aren't all that different from the advice that I was offering to families during the school year, except perhaps it's okay to incorporate a little more downtime, a little more fun time, and I hope a lot more outside time now that the temperatures are rising and the sun is out. We're actually going to take a very quick break, a quick 30-second break to learn a little bit more about the telehealth services that we're offering at Child Mind Institute, and then I'll be right back answering some of your questions.
The Child Mind Institute is a national leader in children's mental health and learning disorders. In the face of the coronavirus pandemic, we are here to support all families. Whether you need help with remote learning, stress management techniques, or support for children who are in distress, the Child Mind Institute is available to help your family cope during this challenging time. We're here for you wherever you are. To request an appointment, visit childmind.org/telehealth.
Hi, everyone. We're back. Again, I'm answering questions related to keeping your kids busy during the summer under quarantine, and specifically how to support kids with learning disabilities, with ADHD, and with other learning challenges. So I alluded when I first started talking to a bunch of activities that are educational in nature that parents can incorporate just to keep kids involved in learning, so that they don't end up having 6 full months away from any sort of instruction. There are tons of virtual classes. I know I literally just got finished telling you to try to limit screen time now, but there are lots and lots of virtual classes that are available. Some are free, some are subscription services, some are drop-in classes. But certainly check out Khan Academy, offers free courses online. ABC Mouse is a subscription service that has online learning activities for kids as young as 2 all the way through middle school. OutSchool is another website that offers different courses for kids through high school in a variety of formats, lengths, scheduling flexibility. You can take drop-in classes, you can take semester-long classes, you can take summer-long classes on a huge range of activities. Mystery Science is a great website that offers online science lessons. Sawyer and Activity Hero are 2 more websites that offer a ton of content. I've seen they have music lessons and bilingual story time and monolingual story time and cooking classes and yoga classes and dance and crafts and Roblox and animation courses and coding classes and academic enrichment camps. It's really amazing to see the range of content that exists out there in the online universe. So certainly check out some of those things. I can link some of those sites in the feed later on, but that's a great way to try to incorporate both some structured activities, some academic material into your kids' days. Also, check out the Parks and Recreation Department in your community may also have some options for virtual classes, for activities, and even for some virtual summer day camps I've seen, which is really, really interesting. I'm going to get to some of your questions. I have a question here from someone. My son has ADHD and needs to run around. He was playing a ton of team sports before the pandemic and is really missing them. Any suggestions for alternative activities? This is really tough. For a lot of kids, sports are their savior. It's a great way for them to burn off energy. It's a social outlet for them. For kids who struggle with learning, it's sometimes the thing that they look forward to in school. We know that movement is so helpful for kids who have attentional difficulties. It's really helpful in sustaining focus. Just having a lot of opportunities to move around has been proven to help with focus and attention. And not having those structured sports outlets is tough for a lot of kids. This, again, obviously varies depending on where you live, whether you live in the city versus the suburbs, the phase of reopening that your hometown is in, your own unique housing circumstances, whether you have a house versus an apartment, if you have a backyard versus living near a community park. And again, who else is home with the kids, whether your children have supervision or if there are siblings in the home who can play with your child. But once you figure out kind of what the parameters are, the ideas could be pretty limitless. You just have to get the creative juices flowing. So there are tons of outdoor physical activities that don't require physical contact, which of course would be the limiting factor with a lot of sports. But go for a long bike ride, go to the park and fly a kite, or in the backyard. Jump rope, hopscotch, all these really wonderful old-fashioned outdoor activities that I think are coming back. If you have a backyard and your son is a soccer star, set up a goal. You don't have to have a physical goal. You can use landmarks in the backyard or trees, cones, a pile of rocks, just something to sort of mark a barrier of some sort. And you can use this time away from competitive soccer as a way for him to sharpen shooting and passing skills. Yoga is a great way to both burn some energy, and also we know that yoga and meditation are really helpful for kids with ADHD. There's some online programming through Cosmic Kids and Go Noodle. I actually think that Cosmic Kids is through YouTube, but there's certainly a lot of online course and content providers that I discussed above that have yoga classes for kids. Freeze dance, turn on the music and play freeze dance if you're in an apartment. Run around in the sprinklers. Wash the car, wash the dog, create an obstacle course in the backyard. There's PE with Joe on YouTube. There are these weekday morning PE classes, which are really great. You don't need a ton of space in order to move around with this PE teacher. I know a lot of people who, again, this depends where you live, but I know people who bought trampolines, who have bought bounce houses and splash pads, and just really had to try to create a lot of outdoor physical activity for their kids, because their kids need movement and they need movement. But you don't need to buy things. Turn your backyard into a mud pit. You may not have a beautiful backyard for the summer, and that's okay, but dig a hole and fill it with water. Kids will love to splash around in mud for a couple of hours. You'll just have to hose them off before you bring them back in. But kids don't mind being dirty, and it's a really great way for them to be outside and be creative and just move around. Again, the ideas are really endless. You just have to think about the limitations based on where you live. I would also say this can also be a really stressful and challenging time for athletes who are missing out on training and competition seasons in the spring, the summer, and potentially into the fall. So for those kids, I'm really encouraging them to use this time to engage with other critical components of training. So work on injury prevention, work on flexibility and range of motion exercises, engage in yoga, do foam rolling, learn how to stretch, strength train, participate in programs that are really geared towards injury prevention can be really helpful. Use this time to work on other skills, work on stick skills, work on perfecting other shots, learn the skills for a new position, work on endurance and conditioning. You can certainly socially distance while going for a long run. So I think that we have to be creative. The past few months and the summer are all about creativity and pivoting, but there are certainly ways to get what we need while maintaining social distancing. I'm going to get to some of these questions. We are finishing school and my 9-year-old daughter is fighting her project, procrastinating, starting and stressing out when I ask her about her plan. This question comes from Jennifer. And I sympathize with Jennifer and I sympathize with her daughter. This has been a really challenging year for everyone, for students, for teachers who have had to pivot, for parents who have had to balance tons of new roles that they're not used to and don't have the time or the bandwidth to try to manage, and yet no one really has a choice. I think the first thing is validate your daughter. This really stinks. This is really, really hard. And she's been going at it now for potentially 2.5 to 3 months, and we still don't know what the fall is going to look like. So it makes sense that she's a little bit work avoidant at this point. I think there are a couple of things. If this is new, that she's if it's a new behavior, it's likely a function of just how stressful and challenging and fatigued she is from how stressful and challenging the situation is and how much fatigue she's dealing with due to the stressful and challenging nature of home learning. But if it's longer standing, then perhaps talk to her teachers and see whether this is a pattern that they've noticed, and if there are tips that they have to help her to be a little bit more efficient or a little bit more on top of her time and her homework demands. And potentially this is something that she might need a little bit of support in. Otherwise, try to work with her on breaking down these assignments and setting deadlines for starting different components of the assignments, and then reinforce her progress as she goes. So, if she has to write a paper, first we come up with a topic, and once she comes up with a topic, she gets a break and does something more enjoyable, and then she has to make an outline, and once she's completed that part of it, she gets, you're going to break this down with her and reinforce her for each small step along the way, just to get her to that finish goal. And it might feel like more hands-on hand-holding and reinforcement than you would like to do under normal circumstances, but these aren't normal circumstances, and the goal is really just to get to the finish line at this point. The other thing is perhaps lower expectations. I think, we certainly want kids to finish the school year, but this might not be their best school year. And I don't think we should let kids off the hook for their work. We want kids to complete their responsibilities, to follow through on their responsibilities. But this is really, really hard. And I think that if kids aren't doing their best work right now, it's understandable. I think it's really hard for people to focus at this point and to continue pushing through. But I think remaining positive, remaining validating, reinforcing kids for their efforts, trying to break up assignments, help kids chunk things down, and incorporating enjoyable tasks in the process can be a really helpful way to keep kids going. And the goal is really just to get to the finish line at this point. Let's see if there's some more questions. Alia, do children experience regression during this time? When do you become concerned and address it? It's a great question. I spoke about this a little bit earlier on. We know there's there's some predictable regression for all children. All kids show some level of summer slide. 3 months is a really long time to go without formal instruction in the summer. We know that kids with learning disabilities, kids with ADHD, kids with language disorders, kids for whom English is not the first language, are definitely at particular risk of showing a regression in their academic skills. There's a lot of concern that kids are not making as much progress in their academic skills this year than they would under normal circumstances, because they're not benefiting from the type of instruction that we know that kids really need, which is, explicit, teacher-directed, individualized as needed opportunities for teachers to address questions in just in-person, face-to-face conversation. A lot of the social aspects of school can help keep kids engaged. Teachers are really effective at making learning a little bit more engaging, and so that kids are really benefiting from teacher instruction, and kids are losing that this year. So I think it's to be expected that kids are not going to make as much academic progress as they would under normal circumstances, and that their skills are going to drop a little bit by the end of the summer more than they would under normal circumstances because they've been away from traditional instruction for so long. So I think it's a couple of things. I think that schools are going to have to adjust their expectations and figure out where to begin in the fall. If we are back in person, it's my hope that we'll all be back in classes in the fall. I think teachers are going to have to adjust the curriculum a little bit and meet students where they are and do a little bit more review of the material that they covered this spring than they do under normal circumstances. And again, I think it's really important for parents to incorporate some academic work into every day for their kids, and kids may resist that. And so again, I think being positive, being validating, incorporating a lot of reinforcement for kids' efforts over the summer is really important. So with that, I think we're just about at time. So I'm going to start to wrap up. I'm going to post some links to some of the things that I spoke about earlier on. And if there are any lingering questions that I didn't get to, please do post them in the feed. We look through them daily so they can be addressed in future Facebook Lives. I do want to thank all of you again for joining me today. I hope that it was helpful. Remember, we're here every day. We look through your questions daily. Tomorrow, which is Friday, my colleague Dr. Bethany Weaver will be here discussing autism and telehealth, again at 4:30 in the afternoon. So please join her for that. And remember, the Child Mind Institute is here to help with the mental health and parenting needs of this coronavirus crisis, no matter where you are. So please visit us at childmind.org/telehealth to learn more about the incredible variety of telehealth services that we have available during this time for children, teens, and young adults and families. So be safe, and thank you for joining me today.